First overall pick, quarterback Kyler Murray had nearly 100 yards on the ground against the Bengals, and according to Pro Football Focus, about half of those yards came off design runs and half came off quarterback scrambles. So, how much was the defensive line to blame here? Let's go through about 5 plays or so. So, here in the first quarter, Cardinals are going to motion a receiver across towards the weak side. You have essentially a 7-man box here for the Bengals. And this is going to look like a zone read where Murray is reading either an edge defender or the mic, whether or not to hand the ball off to running back Chase Edmonds, but it's actually a design quarterback keeper where Edmonds will then act as the lead blocker. And where Edmonds goes depends on what the force players for the Bengals do. So this play is all based upon the efforts and the abilities of Sam Hubbard and Jesse Bates here, reading the mesh point, reading the play. But of course, Murray, just look how quick he is, man. Pulls that ball back and just explodes out into space. And the focal point here is the defensive line, and there's just not much that the defensive line can do in this situation because really, again, it's all dependent upon Sam Hubbard, and the only way he can possibly have an impact on this play is if he has some type of Herculean effort because, he's just playing gap football, right? He's responsible for this gap. This is his run fit. And ultimately, it comes down to the force players of the Bengals defense to get outside and funnel this play back in. But the athleticism of Murray and Edmonds as the lead blocker really helps this play generate a first down. It's a great play call by Cliff Kingsbury and the Cardinals offense. And there's not much that the Bengals defensive line could have done here aside from some freak athletes in the second level. Later in the second quarter, we have a 2nd and long deep in Bengals territory. Preston Brown, Carlos Dunlap shift responsibilities essentially. So you have Brown as the weak side linebacker here going now on the line of scrimmage, and he's going to essentially act as a contained player. He's just going to show color here and force any outside run by Murray or the running back inside. In this play, like the last play, it came down to Sam Hubbard on the edge. This play will come down to Carlos Dunlap because Murray's going to motion in a receiver, going to have a fake jet sweep, and just look at the effect it has on the rest of the Bengals defensive line. All see the motion movement of the Cardinals blockers and the potential ball carrier here. Murray pulls it back at the mesh point because the entire defense is flowing against the grain now. And this is all up to Dunlap. Needs to get off this block immediately. Just doesn't do that, right? Now, if Dunlap does this, it's a fantastic play and it's extremely positively graded. And for him to get off this block about half a second earlier, like that's something that a great player would do. I'm not sure Dunlap is that caliber of player anymore, but again, a Herculean effort would have been required for Dunlap to make this stop because essentially with the design of the play, with that motion, everything that we just saw, Dunlap is the only player left to possibly make a play on this run, and that's 6 yards from Murray and the Cardinals offense to generate an easy third down conversion later on. Now, late in the second quarter, Cardinals looking to score before halftime. Here they go empty. So they're in a 3-by-2 formation and 10 personnel. This is David Johnson, the running back, in the slot. So you have trips to Murray's left and 2 receivers to his right. Man coverage across the board for the Bengals in their nickel defense. They have Preston Brown and Nick Vigil, linebackers, in the slot in man coverage. 2 deep safeties in Sean Williams and Jesse Bates. 4-man pass rush. Nobody in the middle of the field. And when the Cardinals go in empty in their specific air raid scheme, they don't have a lot of in-breaking routes. They don't have a lot of commotion going on in the intermediate portion of the field in between the hashes. So this area here is just naturally vacated by the route concepts that they run. So as a defense, you're in man, right? And you have 5 guys in man coverage, 2 deep safeties, 4-man pass rush. This is prime opportunity for a quarterback run, a quarterback keeper. And I just talked about no in-breaking routes, but we just saw Preston Brown have to guard basically a drag route. But Preston Brown essentially is your only hope in limiting what is essentially a 30-yard run to maybe a 10 or 15-yard run. And you don't really trust Preston Brown to come off of this route and make an athletic open field tackle on Kyler Murray, right? So for a defensive line, you have Carlos Dunlap and Carl Lawson trying to bend around the arc, and basically keep Kyler in the pocket. That's fine. Interior rushers. You have Glasgow and Tupou trying to push the pocket with power moves. And the only way that this can possibly be limited is if your interior rushers essentially prioritize maintaining gap discipline instead of trying to push the pocket to a point where you force the quarterback to escape the pocket. If the quarterback leaves the pocket, it's more times than not going to be a positive play for the offense. So this is basically where I would fault this play, is your defensive tackles are going too far upfield and forgetting the responsibilities of keeping the quarterback in the pocket in a prime scenario where he can make plays with his feet. What's the situation here? We have 1st and 20 in the fourth quarter. This is a traditional zone read, and Kyler Murray is going to read the unoccupied edge defender Carl Lawson here. Fortunately for Lawson, he just gets sunk way too far inside. This is something we saw a lot last year against the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson. If Lawson doesn't make the play here, if he doesn't keep up with Murray, if he doesn't force him back inside, it's 100% of the time going to be a positive play, because that zone read is going to funnel and sink the linebackers in too far away from the quarterback when he keeps it, and it's going to be a positive play for the offense 9 times out of 10. Finally, Cardinals are going to go into empty one more time, and basically the play that won them the game. Again, they're in a 3-by-2. Middle of the field's going to be wide open. The defensive line makes the same mistake as last time. Too far up. Prioritize the pass rush over just maintaining your gaps. This time, you have Jesse Bates coming down quicker than last time, but I mean, it's Kyler Murray, man. He's like a running back playing quarterback. It's just hard to corral him in the open field. Bates gets juked out of his mind. Cardinals waltz into field goal range, win the game at the buzzer.